I'm done about it.
There's one that would be a survey.
You know what? I see that.
You know, we can answer questions under literal pressure.
Yeah.
How else can you be tested for a general election than being at the bottom of a cheer here in the basement of a public library?
I am recording, so at least we will have evidence of that happening. Yeah.
That's the line.
Very clumsy and
You will pronounce it as well. Okay, thanks. Just. All right, everyone. I will start with, my name is Jeremy Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Weber County Progressive Caucus. Thank you all for coming here, and I want to give a heartfelt thank you for all the candidates coming.
To absorb bladder weights instantly without the ball, so you feel dry, comfortable, and confident. Points, the fastest absorbing thin pad.
Oh no, that'll mute our microphone.
I'm sorry. You good?
Yes, worry about it.
Sure. I'm going to have the candidates introduce themselves. You have roughly 2 minutes to introduce yourself. So, good luck. And I will have
yeah, you guys are all going to run your mics.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, trying again.
Did it die?
11.
Okay, all right, I'll just, okay. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Bianca Mittendorf, and I am running for House District 7 of the North Office. And I am very excited to be in this race and to be here on this panel with such excellent candidates that we have running on the different ticket. A little bit about me. I've spent my career in public education. I started out as a special education teacher working in the Davis School District. And then I ended up working at the district level. And now I'm proud to work for the Utah Education Association, which is the largest teachers union here in the state of Utah. Part of my focus as a candidate is really to ensure that we are investing in our future. And for me, what that looks like is considerable investment in our children through public education, through childcare, and also to ensure that our children have somewhere to live on their own, a home of their own, through housing as well. So as a candidate, I am committed to finding very smart solutions to, one, ensuring that public education continues to be funded. Well, let me edit. Not necessarily continues, because we know some of the money is being funded to, voucher programs, but we have a commitment, a recommitment to invest in public education. For childcare, looking at solutions which may involve, rezoning for micro daycares, or could even be something along the lines of employer incentives, as we saw kind of come through the last legislative session. And for housing, making sure that our state legislators are not passing housing policy that is not responsive to the needs of the local municipalities. If you are interested in who I am, what my campaign is all about, I encourage you to visit my website, alexbianca.com. You'll find all of my socials there as well. Again, my name is Bianca Mittendorf, and I'm so happy to be here this evening.
Hi, I am Kim James, and I'm running for House District 8. House District 8 includes the East Bench of Ogden, from about Ogden High School, north to Dunloman High School, west to the railroad tracks, the whole Ogden Valley, a little bit of Morgan County, and the very, very most parts of North Ogden and Pleasant View. My background is I've been a United Methodist pastor for about 40 years. I served churches in Colorado and then here in Ogden. I have recently retired and I have time to devote to this campaign. And if elected, I would have full-time opportunity to devote to being your elected representative. Why do I care about this? As a pastor, I saw human needs. And I also worked closely with agencies throughout the community and the states to solve those human needs. And so I think that working as a legislator would continue that understanding of human needs, listening to what people care about, what their concerns are, and then seeking solutions through the agencies and organizations that are available, creating laws and policies that help instead of harm people. I care deeply about people. I also care about the environment and the health of the environment as it affects our human health. And we all know that there are great concerns right now about the Great Salt Lake, our air quality, what kind of things we might be breathing if the lake dries up and the dust starts blowing toxins toward us. We worry about affordability. And if that toxic dust starts blowing, our houses are all going to lose a lot of value. And so that's an important thing. We care about the price of groceries and gasoline and all of those things. As a state legislator, there isn't an enormous amount that we can do, but there are some things that we can do. I've been looking into property taxes and other kinds of tax solutions. Years ago, I worked repeatedly year after year after year to remove grocery taxes. That's still something that I would be likely to work on if we could find a way to persuade the resistance to change their minds. I care about having a government that respects the will of the people. I think we've seen with the Box Elder County protests that I've been a part of 3 times. I've been in Box Elder County over the past month. The will of the people is important, and government needs to listen to the people about what they want and need. We need a government that doesn't try to thwart the will of the people or skirt around it or hurry and do things in the dark before people wake up and realize what's happening. We need to have a government that's accountable and legitimate. And the only way that's going to happen in Utah is if we elect enough Democrats to put the Republicans on notice that they have to pay attention to people instead of just taking their votes for granted. I'm Kim James, running in House District 8, and I hope that you will elect me to be your next representative.
Hello, everyone. Well, I could just say, didn't go over the comments here, but I'm Angela Chorburka, and I'm running for House District 9. And that actually is downtown Ogden here, a small part of Roy and a huge part of West Haven. So no gerrymandering at all happening here. Anyway, I'm really excited to be running for this seat. I ran 2 years ago and had great success. We moved the needle by 7 points at that time. Anyway, and I've served on the Ogden City Council for 8 years. I just
Did it lose better?
The connection is just coming in and out. Yours too. Okay, so I'll just keep going. Assume you're okay. Yeah. Leave it to me in the clumsy ones. Anyway, okay, where was it? Oh, so I served on the Ogden City Council for 8 years, and during that time, the reason I originally ran for that seat was I felt exactly the same as some of the comments were made here. I didn't feel like my local government had my voice at the table, So I was really happy to be in that seat for 8 years. And part of my mission there was to create accessibility, transparency in government, and really to build trust back with our communities, because I feel that people have really lost trust. And that's continued in the bigger spectrum, especially at the state and federal levels, I think. And so I'm running to just ensure, number one, that there's a competitive race in that seat, because sometimes I feel like we don't have candidates that step up to the plate. I want to make sure that we model how we run campaigns so that people know that that's the way they should be reaching out to people. I've been on a listening tour the past couple of months, and that's been really a great opportunity for me to listen to not only city council, planning commission meetings in Roy and West Haven, and coming around to Ogden coming up in June, although I know a little bit about that already. I'm really listening to the concerns of people when issues like housing or growth are being talked about, or taxes at the local level. Because sometimes what I've heard also a lot is people pointing fingers, right? People pointing fingers from one entity to another. Well, it's their responsibility, or no, it's their responsibility. I recently was at a panel where my opponent was there, but also another representative from the legislature, and they blamed the city council members for not being able to solve the problem of housing. However, my opponent said that he would like to make sure that all decisions are made closest to the people that are impacted. And so those kinds of rhetoric that are happening are really challenging, because it's saying both things at the same time. They want to listen to local voices, however, they want to dictate at the legislative level how we do that. And I understand the concerns and the things that they're trying to help to support as well, but I think there's a better way to do it, to listen to people and come to solutions together in community with one another. I'm impatient as I served on the Ogden City Council. I was often in rooms where people that were talking about our community were not using data or research or science to back up their particular decisions. And I'm a person that does that. So one example that really caused me challenge was when I was first on the council and met with a local commissioner who said that he didn't believe that children in Weber County, there was 7,000 children in Weber County that were food insecure, even though he had the data from a report that the state had put out sitting right there in his hand. He didn't believe it. He thought that maybe the children didn't like the food that was in the cupboard. So for me, that was a really big challenge, knowing that Ogden School District is a Title I district, which means by the data and by the people that I know, that we have a lot of need in our communities. And so that's why I think that we need people that actually look at the data and connect with people and understand their situation versus kind of speaking our way. So I'm Angela Chorburka, and I'm running for House District 9.
Just a quick reminder, the but on loan is your 2-minute warning.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
Thank you.
No, you're good. It does sound like it.
This went right here.
I know. Throw you out to the side.
We'll resolve one next time.
I'm Dave Calder. I'm running for House District 11. That's the district around Hill Air Force Base and the 9 communities around. We'll talk about gerrymandering. That's how we got it. We got a few communities since the last election with the House legislature trying to pull districts away from House District 10. Anyway, I'm a retired Air Force. I'm an Air Force veteran, and my last assignment was at Hill Air Force Base. So I worked at Hill Air Force Base, and I've continued to work with that with a not-for-profit defense research firm in university. Anyway, I grew up in the Air Force. I was born on Air Force Base, and I know how I know how the government has been able to help me and invest in me, and that's one of the messages I have. Is that my first job was a job from the Air Force as a high school student living overseas, where you couldn't get jobs overseas. And my first job was working as I checked out tools for mechanics at Clark Air Force Base, same place where my dad was flying refugees in Vietnam, and saw how the refugees were helped these refugees were people who helped U.S. service people and saw how it helped them. The Air Force also paid for my education twice. I had an ROTC scholarship and then sent me to school to get my master's degree. I was able to go ahead and take an investing and work for the Air Force and do many good things for them. So they invested in me that way. They helped me get my first home. I had VA loan. It helped me. Well, anyway, we'll talk. But I want to say I'm running for House District 11, and I know that we have tough economic times now. I think that the government can help. I have experience in receiving that kind of help and know what that can do. I know we live in a conservative area, but I want to remind folks that that's how I'm living. Of course, that already that problem with the refugee courts. Anyway, I'm good.
Test. Want to be sure. Open up a little closer just in case I feel like I'm doing my own video here. We know when we go. Ready? Okay, greetings. I'm CJ Hernandez and I'm running for Senate District 5, which touches Dave's, touches Angela's, touches Kim's district, and encompasses Rosemary Lesser's District 10 in its entirety. I was raised right here in Weber County by a single mom with my two sisters. She was a school teacher, so we sure learned how to stretch a dollar. Following that, I went to Weber State University with some Pell grants and some assistance while I was having my children as well. So that was an investment in me. Following that, I worked for the Air Force out at Hill Air Force Base as a contracts negotiator through a outstanding scholarship program, which gave me a lot of experience of how the government works and how policy works. With that, I went overseas and helped clean up our bases in Europe. In Italy and Germany, we did an awesome program where we're trying to follow EU laws, which are much stricter than ours. And I learned a lot about how the environment can be helped with policy. Then I returned and did public-private partnering here at Hill Air Force Base, bringing workload to our community on the major fighter jets, the F-22, F-35, and C-17. Following that, I joined the Foreign Service. I thought, well, we can use strong power or we can use soft power. Let's try soft power for a while. And I was a diplomat for over 15 years, active duty, and another 5 as a reservist. With that experience, I learned how to lead diverse teams, how to deal with people who don't even share my country or my language and still get results. I've been retired for a few years. I came home and started working for Ogden City and actually met a lot of these fine folks here as the Diversity Affairs Coordinator when we could actually call it that. I'm focused on, I'm going to take a little extra time, but I'm focused on things that we're all caring about, and that's affordability, public education, saving the environment, especially the Great Salt Lake, and listening to the voters that put us there. And that right now is not happening at all. We have a chance here right now in this election this year to make a stand and push back on the supermajority and make sure that we get our voices heard while working across the aisle. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Dakota Wurth. I'm running for Senate District 5 as well. Gerrymandering is cute. That touches 12 unique communities in Davis, Weber, and Morgan County. I'm a city council member in Clearfield, where I'm the youngest person who ever won an election, and I'm Davis County's first ever openly gay elected official. I've worked in county government for the last 5 years, where I've ran all of Davis County's affordable housing programs. I'm currently the deputy director of the Davis County Recorder's Office, and I even work for Weber County in their clerk's office, processing tax valuation appeals, returning property taxes to people on fixed incomes. And I've learned through my work on the city council and in county government just how poor state policy rears its head in increasing the cost of living for seniors on fixed incomes and young families trying to purchase their first home. Because when the state passes an unfunded mandate, cities have to respond by increasing property taxes, and that's true of school districts as well. That's what propelled me to run for this race. And Senate District 5 is the youngest and one of the most working class Senate districts in the state of Utah, because it never had representation that looks like that. And I believe wholeheartedly that in a citizen-led legislature, that your representatives should look like your community. And I'm also the only Democrat that holds elected office outside of Salt Lake County that's running for office in the state this cycle. I bring with me a bevy of actual real experience at the local level and getting things done on policy and in tangible ways. So I'm excited to take that to the state level. I've been able to build a very broad coalition with the endorsement and support of over 30 elected officials across the state, across ideologies, and I'm one of the most progressive people running in the state. And that's reflective of my work ethic and willingness to get things done for people and my constituents. There's no candidate from Salt Lake that has reached more voters through hard work and deliberate effort to learn what they care about, and they're telling me that they care about that same representation, about affordability, about the Great Salt Lake, and regulating AI. So I'm excited to do some work on that. I won't take some extra time. My name is Dakota Wurth. I'm running for Senate District 5.
Just to explain what's going on, you're introducing yourself again.
Cool.
You can go a little bit over as everyone has. Okay. No shade, just what's happening.
Okay, all right. Hello, guys. Hello, guys. My name's Alvin Thurgood. I'm running for Weber County Commissioner seat A. I'm the only Democrat that's running for County Commissioner seat A. I'm the only Democrat that's running for County Commissioner, period. There's 2 Republicans for seat B, an independent, 5 Republicans on seat A, and 1 forward, Gary New, who is a pretty good guy. I like him. Anyway, I live here in North Ogden, and one of the things that I'd like to help address and change is the cost of housing. I really do think that we can employ a program to help bring down payment assistance programs for all of Weber County. Ogden City already offers one, so I figured why can't we try to expand it for Roy, Far West, North Ogden, Pleasant View, Huntsville, Eden, areas like that. I'm very anti-AI, so you don't have to worry about me being on Midas, like what's his name? Oh man, like that, yeah, that James guy, that guy's not a good county commissioner in my opinion. You shouldn't be going behind your constituents like that. So you won't have to worry about me trying to find ways to get AI data centers within Weber County or build one in Weber County. How much time do I got left?
48 minutes.
So I've been working on some stand-up comedy routine. So yeah, anyway, I'm also in dire need of people who actually can devote the time to volunteer. So far, I'm the only one. I don't have a treasurer. I don't have a campaign manager. I haven't even finished setting up my Act Blue yet because I just can't handle doing everything on my own. Also, there will be a county commission debate here on Monday held by League of Women Voters. So I will be here with Gary New and the rest of the Republicans who are all duking it out. But if there's someone who can be willing to help me gather the time, okay, yeah, if there's someone who could be willing to help me be a treasurer and campaign manager and meet maybe once a week, we can start focusing on getting some funds together so we can get voter outreach, signs, things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say before the questions start, it is great to see so many Democrats running for the county. I haven't seen this many running for a long time. We're going to start the questions, and we're going to have it go from Ken to Angela, and then will Bianca. So let's start with housing. Housing affordability and availability is a constant issue in our state. What would be your first priority regarding housing policy if you were to be elected?
Housing is such a difficult, let me help with this, turn this on. Housing is a very difficult issue, obviously, or it would have been solved already. As a state legislator, I would have the ability to shape with my colleagues the budget. And the budget is not just dollars and cents, it's a moral document that affects the behavior of people and corporations. And if we use the state budget to shape behaviors, then we would have the ability to incentivize the building of more homes, to put guardrails around the pricing so that we could assure that the houses and apartments that are built are actually affordable and that they are available to the people who need them most. Right now, it's when they give money for only brand new homes for first-time buyers, but those brand new homes are too expensive for those first-time buyers to buy, it doesn't make any sense. And so what we need to do is make sure that what the state policy is, in regard to housing, actually achieves the goals that need to be achieved. And I don't know all the answers to how that works. It's something that's going to be very difficult, and we're all together going to be working on it. But it is something that I would care very much about doing, because I know that when I moved to Ogden, I was a first-time home buyer. This was 14 years ago, and I could afford my house then, but I couldn't afford it today.
I'll agree with what you said, but also kind of getting back to what I was talking about before, one priority for me is right now there is policy in place coming from the legislature that asks cities to do a certain number of things to help to create more conditions for affordability in housing, or attainable housing. And the challenge, I think, with that is that some cities have taken that challenge on and chosen some of the things from the list that you can do, which might involve rezoning certain areas or providing transit-oriented development in certain areas in the community, or creating these funds, as was mentioned by a couple of people, that Ogden City already has, or that we could expand. And so the challenge, I think, is, as I was saying, the residents themselves doesn't really understand how this all rolls out to people or why it's happening. They get a little bit confused in the process. And so I think that there needs to be a little bit more of a partnership between residents, communication, and also the local people that are creating the policy, as well as the state level. One meeting that I had with the mayor in our area, he said, number one, he's not used to a representative from the state actually reaching out to him to have a meeting. So that's a problem to begin with. He also has to chase them down repeatedly. But also that when he does have those meetings, for example, he feels like they're kind of agreeable to what he's saying and talking about in his community. But then when the policies get created later, it doesn't really follow the conversation that they had. And so I think there's some gaps in those communications, as well as listening to the constituents. And I think it is really challenging with our current representation in the legislature that there's so many developers and real estate people, and I actually don't have negative feelings about developers. I've heard for many years, in the council meetings, how people get so frustrated with developers, but I think there needs to be a better partnership.
Okay.
Are we going all the way down?
Oh, then yeah.
No, you're good.
Just heard Bianca, and I'm like, it's me.
So on. Yeah, I agree with what you all are saying, and I'm not really.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
We're about 80,000 units short, homes in the state of Utah. Certainly a lot of builders will build. One of the problems is zoning. We don't have enough guardrail, I think, it's actually on with cities. I don't want to go. I like the League of Cities. I like the fact that they can go ahead and have make their own rules. But I do think we got to put some guardrails in place so that we make sure that we ensure that there's some portion of the land set aside for starter homes. And one reason I want to focus on starter homes is they also apply apartment prices. Because if you're an apartment and you have 80,000 units short, and you have people who want to get into a house, they're in your apartment, and they're driving prices up too. We have people who are paying as much as the mortgage payment for apartments. So that's one. And another is to relax some of the requirements. Logan contract was complaining about having to build 3-story units, and we have families that don't need 3-story units yet. But that was a requirement. We have a community in Salt Lake that requires houses to be built on half an acre. coordinator. And you see that kind of pressure when we open that up. So that would be one other thing. I would make sure we have very good transparency about who owns your apartment. Because do they own multiple units? Or are they, you want to know who's owning it. You want to talk and, but you also want to make sure that there's not in the back of the market on that. I'll leave it at that.
All right, I have a blended family of 5 adults, children 18 to 34. I see this problem every single day. Their American dream looks much different than mine did, and I recognize that. A lot of the issue is not only is housing unaffordable, it's unattainable, the wages are low, childcare is excessive costs. I mean, this is an affordability issue as a whole. And it doesn't help that we're in a war with Iran with raising gas prices. Back to Utah. So what we can do is expand this new owner, first time owner, new home program. Why is it just for new homes? That's also benefiting the developers. Again, nothing against developers, but we are letting them run rampant in our state and letting them dictate the terms to how we live. So why can't we use that 20,000 plus anything that cities offer? I know Ogden has a really good own and Ogden program, and others do as well, to also use for homes that have been used and remodel them and live there. That's where I got my start for sure. In addition to that, you know, Dave touched on a little bit, we need renters protections as well. We have the legislature very much favors landlords, like they're going broke every day, but they're not. And corporate interests are buying up houses even. They're gobbling them up and leasing them back. It's like we're on a subscription for life, not only Netflix and our telephone service, but also where we live. Ownership is slipping away here in America, and especially in Utah. And when we want our kids to stay home, our families to stay here, and we're inviting new people in with businesses and all the great influx and influence that we have coming in from base and other people, we need to make sure that we can all live in this community. And we can do it by expanding our supply and looking at opportunities to reuse some of the funding that the government's given. Thank you.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
So this is my area, right? So I ran all of these programs that get people into homes. Yes, the first priority is getting people into homes. The direct homebuyer assistance is, you know, one of the ways that we do that. And frankly, what the state offers is not enough, but we need to look at kind of the housing stock equation. And it may surprise you that in District 5, we have one of the more affordable areas as far as purchasing a home, with a median price much lower than the state average. I think my first priority relative to the needs of this district is banning speculative corporate ownership of single family homes, and also banning algorithmic price fixing for the units that are being constructed for rent. There are a lot of cities in this community that have gone above and beyond to meet the state's requirement to move the needle towards housing supply. Washington Terrace, South Ogden, Clearfield, Warren Council member. Zoning is a component of this, but we also have really historic World War II mid-century housing stock in Washington Terrace and Clearfield that is closer to like an average price of $400,000. And I live in a neighborhood where a lot of those units have been bought up by corporate owners and either flipped or turned into perpetual rentals. That is taking the bottom of the market out from under us. And we also have to look at how we incentivize development. Right now, due to the scarcity of land in this district, if you don't have multi-millions of dollars, you can't develop. And those rental units, those large scale ones, still get the same property tax exemption as a single family home. And by that nature, we're incentivizing more rentals, but that exemption doesn't get passed on to tenants through lower rents. We also need to look at banning a requirement that is true for a lot of apartment complexes. You can make 3 times the monthly rent gross to qualify to live there. Most people don't. That's a huge barrier facing Utah as a whole.
Okay, sorry.
Bad for the speakers or bad for the mic?
Nice.
Okay, my bad.
Okay. Shane. You're cutting 10 seconds off.
Am I ready? Okay, all right. I think this is more of just a discussion than it is a debate because none of us are running against each other. And I'm not entirely. I like everything that everyone has said here, but one thing that I have not heard discussed that I believe New York City passed, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on it. But they banned Airbnbs because Airbnbs, when you have a house that you can't even rent it, it's only an Airbnb, it's only for a weekend. That helps agitate the cost of housing. It helps takes away the opportunity for people to be able to buy the house. And some of these Airbnbs aren't even like log cabins. Some of them are just regular brick houses with 2 or 3 bedrooms. You know, the people that live there, they live there most of the time, or maybe even part of the time. And then they charge a ludicrous amount for people who are only going to stay there for the weekend. So obviously, as county commissioner, I don't think I have any control of that, but I think a banning of Airbnbs would prove a lot, very useful across the nation if we could move towards that. But kind of what I was saying earlier is not only down payment programs are important, but we also have to make sure they're actually helpful. I qualified for a $10,000 down payment program through Ogden City last fall, and I still could not afford a house. And I was looking at houses for $225,000, $250,000, and they were dumps, man. And I mean, they were literally leaning crooked, trees growing over the top. A windstorm would have taken that house in a heartbeat. And one of the things that I would like to do as county commissioner, and maybe this something is a program I could do, is take these houses that are abandoned, take these houses that are outdated, redo the flooring, redo the roofing, redo the paint, and sell them to the buyers as the cost of what it would be to remodeling. Thank you.
Okay, I will get it eventually. This is only my second time speaking into the mic. Okay. So these are all excellent responses. I've been listening. I'm like, yeah, and so I don't want to like repeat what has been said, but as I think about the challenges, particularly facing my district, which encompasses North Ogden, parts of Pleasant View, parts of Harrisville. It's a suburban area, and for a long time, it's been very kind of agricultural, based. And now there's been this explosion of growth. We have people moving into the area. The challenge that North Ogden in particular has been facing is that the infrastructure as it stands right now can't support it. So this growth is happening, and the underlying infrastructure is just collapsing essentially. And I really feel for the city council because they have been doing their best to work with what they've been handed down by the legislature. And that, there's a gas tax, for example, that is supposed to be used to be able to beautify the roads and things like that. Unfortunately, not enough to meet their needs. And so they've tried to see if they could even possibly get a little bit more of a tax increase, and that's resulted in it getting kicked back from the state. And I mention that because one of my priorities to address housing would be to get in front of the issue. We have to plan for a situation before we can just wait for it to hit us and then try to do what we can. So primarily, I want to ensure we can build the infrastructure, look at policies which do that, and then also build a knowledge team. I'm not an expert in housing, so building folks around me who have that knowledge.
We are going to go Angela first. This is going to be an individual just yes or no question, so it should be hopefully pretty easy. Hopefully. Will you give more power to water authorities to curb water usage or threat of law?
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
I'm
Please, I'm
Can you
good.
repeat it one more time?
Apologies. Let me read this off. Will you give more to water authorities, curb water usage with threat of law?
Absolutely.
Oh, you want me to read it again?
No. I hadn't thought about the water authorities other than because it seems like they already get that, they just shut it off. But I do think that, we do need a regulatory framework to, if someone's using more water, then yeah, sure.
Yes, absolutely. We need more teeth in the laws that have been passed. They're very much voluntary. And whether you do it at the state level or at the water utility level or shut it off, I think we're in dire need right here. Yes.
When I say shut it off, we're talking about the law, not the.
Second that.
I know, it's
We need accountability.
Yes.
And it's yes for me.
Yes, that's what laws are for. It's to help people to do the right thing.
All right, let us go. Dave, you will be first on this one. Our city has often prioritized freeway extension and road creation to solve transit issues. What would be your policy preference for transit in the state of Utah and Weber County?
I love the mass transit. I wish we did it better here. You know, when we first did the front runner, and I tried it out, and it took 45 minutes. I'm sitting in Farmington waiting for 20 minutes to go. I wish they had done 2 lines. I think it's the way to go, but we haven't implemented well. My wife will tell me, you build the freeway, and you're just going to get more people on the freeway. And that's true. I mean, we live in a mobile society, but we really do need to start making our put laws in place to help neighborhoods keep making more things like that. But I am a proponent of more mass transit.
Can you read the question?
Oh, yes. It is. Our state has often prioritized freeway expansion and road creation to solve transit issues. What would be your policy preference for transit in the state of Utah and Weber County?
Okay. We used to be the frontier here in the West, right? And we still very much have that attitude when it comes to lot size of houses, owning our own vehicles, etc. But we are not on the frontier anymore. We've gone very cosmopolitan here. And absolutely right what Dave said, the more freeway you build, the more cars you're going to have. I've lived in many places where I've not owned a car, 6 different countries and 2 different cities in the United States, and it's free. The cost goes, obviously you don't have to take care of all of that. So I would very much agree with Dave on the mass transit. I love AugX. I think we can do it in other cities here, especially in Clearfield and other areas. We need more bike lanes for those that love to ride their bikes like I did today. These are all things that we need to focus on. We need more public transportation paid by the public so that we can save on insurance, pollution, etc. I think that needs to be our focus. Thank you.
So for me, it comes down to, we need to fund UTA like we fund UDOT, because the rapid expansion of freeways, widening of roads, it harms the housing equation, the infrastructure equation, the tax base equation. I would love to see state level investment that connects the entire state from St. George to Logan with high-speed rail, and then expands tracks lines through Ogden, through Bountiful, through State Street, through Clearfield, all the way up to West Haven, so that we have connected communities, that people can have the choice when it comes to transit. And it also helps, you know, increase the tax base and the ability for small businesses to thrive, so that people can take an invested, you know, role in their community, walk more, participate more in the environment around them, and just not have to own a car. It will help with emissions. It will help with people's general ability to afford things, because they don't have to have as many costs with owning a vehicle, maintaining a vehicle. And it just is a huge net benefit for the state to make that type of investment, because what we've learned historically is that whoever is winning the transportation wars is at the forefront of economic mobility. And we see that happening in other parts of the world. We have the ability to fund that type of investment. We just choose not to. And it is to the detriment of our state and our ability to sustain our environment and accessibility for working people. So it's really simple. Let's just shift that funding priority so that we can have more transit options that actually move.
Oh, sorry, I'm turning it off. I'm a big fan of, in certain areas of the European Union that are completely bike only. You can't even drive a car or even a motorized scooter through there. Areas of Amsterdam, I believe France and Italy have certain areas that are completely bike only as well, Germany. And even beyond that, I think it would be great to see like a parking structure where it's like mandatory that you park, and then there, you know, my mom grew up in Ogden in the 80s and they had the train around town that would take you around. And I don't understand why we had to get rid of that. I thought that would be so useful for us, and it could still be useful for us. So it'd be cool to see not just more ways, but the funds to pay. I don't use the bus, so I gotta be honest, I don't know how much it costs, but if you're already stressed about your rent, you're stressed about your utilities, you're stressed out about your groceries, if we just said, well, here's your annual bus pass that includes the front runner and an Ogden tracks, then you don't have to stress as much. You can get on the train or whatever, you get on the bus, you go do your grocery shopping, you get back on the bus, you go home, and it alleviates the stress as well as the pollution of commuting to and from grocery stores or doctor's appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my opinion on the subject. Thank you.
So, for me, I am gonna echo some of what my colleagues shared here, because that's along the lines of what I was thinking as well. I believe we have this very just strong attachment to wanting to have, you know, create more freeways. We need more freeways, and as we know, it just always creates more congestion. And so being able to have creative policy solutions where the prioritization is on public and mass transit solutions that are prioritized and not like these weird afterthoughts, but where we can see, you know, the tracks line going all the way to the furthest northern reaches of Weber County and all the way, you know, down south. Because I feel that is something that's currently missing, and it really is an accessibility issue. Because then when you talk about someone who, for whatever reason, does not drive, then that really limits their ability to be independent in their community. And so as much as possible, I think there should be a prioritization of making not just mass transit, but other solutions for getting around town, whether it's biking, whether it's creating more lanes. We have a lot of hostile architecture around Ogden. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's just stretches of sidewalk, not a tree in sight, sun beaten down. So really rethinking, you know, how we craft these communities. Those are my thoughts.
So, mass transit is a wonderful thing. We need more of it. We need to put our state resources toward it. I'm not sure right now how gas taxes are funneled, if they must go into highways or if those can be put toward mass transit. We would need to make sure that there is funding available. And if people are driving less and buying less gasoline at the gas pump, then we need to make sure that there's revenue coming in that would fund mass transit that we need. I think front runner is a wonderful thing, and we need it longer through the state. We also need it more often, the double tracking, so it's more convenient. Face it, people are not going to give out their cars if it's not convenient enough to use mass transit. Also, last mile is a big issue. If I ride the front runner to Salt Lake City, but then I can't get to the place I need to go, then how do I do that? And, You know, nowadays you could get up Uber or Lyft, I suppose, but if you're really trying to do mass transit, you need to know how to get from the front runner station to where you need to go. It's probably easier to do that in Salt Lake than it would be if you came to Ogden and then you needed to go to some place in Ogden that you don't have an easy bus ride to. I think I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian person, and I respect Sunday worship, but one of the big problems with a front runner is that it doesn't run on Sundays, and a lot of buses don't run. So even if you want people to come to church, you can't get people to come to church on the bus. And so that is something that I think we could fix.
Yes, I agree with all of you. The thing that I just want to follow up on is, yeah, the last mile is really an issue, which a lot of people have brought up. I tried to commute down to a job in South Jordan for a period of time, and that was my problem, was the last 20 minutes, right? So I think that's kind of going back to Bianca's point as well. Thinking about how we build our communities overall has been a really big focus for me. Thinking about how we want to have people working a little bit closer to where they live so they don't have to commute quite as far. So the work that I think has really helped with this, although it's a little bit too slow for my liking because I want it to be faster, is the Wasatch Front Regional Council. They hold planning sessions with community members as well as local officials, et cetera, and state officials, to really think about the long-term pictures of how we want to develop our communities. And I've heard a lot of these different great ideas actually discussed in those spaces. It certainly has to do with how local, state, and federal folks prioritize these things too. So building those relationships so we can make that happen. To be honest, the OGX I think has been a huge success. My family takes it all the time. I'm really lucky to live only a half block away from it. And I'm so happy that we had the free grant program for 3 years, and I think we're going to extend it for 2 more years. So that really helps people to understand and not have the barrier of cost around using public transportation. So I really believe in that too. It's really creating an environment where all of those things are connected. So then a person doesn't have to necessarily commute really far and on the highway, hopefully, but they'd be able to use more local transit and then also just move their bodies a little bit more. I know that health in our community is a big issue too. So I think all of those things and how we think in the bigger picture, really investing in that long-term planning to build communities so people have a
I am going to go to CGU. Alrighty, so this is a fun one. Will you commit to trying to abolish non-democratic bodies that will push forward legislation and decisions with so little oversight like the Minor Board? Will you commit to trying to abolish non-democratic bodies that push forward legislation and decisions with so little oversight like the Minor Board?
Yes. I understand why MIDA was created. I was on base when we were going through the base realignment program, and Hill was at real risk to be closed. But we weren't. It was during that time when the governor decided to build this board to help expedite things and developments around the base to help support our military. That seems all clear and transparent and good intentions, but I think most of us didn't really know what MIDA was until the Box Elder Chanos project came online. And then there's a lot of ire thrown against them, and then we look at the members who are unelected. Some of them politicians, including the mayor of Clearfield, who's endorsed my colleague here. And the question became, why are developers now controlling development without a check or accountability from the people? And I think we need to look at all of these boards. I understand they're there to be used for expedience, but especially with this one, when we come into the data centers and the sensitivity of the water issues we have here in Utah, I think the sunlight has come out and we need some disinfectant. Thank you.
So yes, I think we need great reform, especially for bodies that make land use decisions. Those should be elected bodies. They have to be accountable to the people and have to actually answer for the decisions that they make. You know, MIDA is, It has a story history. It's done a lot of things in our state. It, in my opinion, should not have been participating in enabling the construction and build of a hyperscale data center. But if we're serious about like supporting Hill Air Force Base and the steps that took to get it to where it is, well, might have played a big role in the mayor of Fairfield on that board in creating Falcon Hill as it is today. So that's part of why I'm proud to have it. So if we're going to be talking about the things that actually are impactful instead of trying to get cheap political points and talk about actionable things, that's what we're going to do. And that's why I'm going to ask for reform for quasi-governmental entities. It's not just MIDA. It is in the Port Authority and others like it.
So I'm going to tweak the question because my is a little bit of a different body. The state legislature controls that. Will you actually put more transparency on Weber County Commission and implement on Weber? I'll leave that question to you.
Yes, I would love to provide financial transparency of where your money is going and what programs we want to start and provide programs that are accessible to those who need it.
My short answer is yes, I absolutely would commit to abolishing non-democratic bodies like the MIDA board, others, just because they really have no place in a democracy. They don't really fit, because if we're talking about a government of the people for the people, then we really shouldn't have boards where like folks could be, you know, just appointed to, not appointed, but not elected. So that's definitely something that is that I would be committed to trying to abolish. Thank you.
Yes, like I said earlier, I've been in Box Elder County meetings now 3 times in the last month, and I immediately researched what is MIDA, and I was astounded to think that the legislature, with the help of the governor's signature, created this entity that had authority that was so strong, so powerful. And I just don't think that groups that are appointed, appointed and not elected should be able to make decisions so rapidly without checks and balances. I think they should be advisory, because we all know that there is value in having groups of people get together and share their knowledge, their professional expertise. And I think that we could benefit from having lots of subcommittees and little gatherings of groups of people who can give advice, but they should not have the power to thrust something onto a little group of people like 3 Box Elder County commissioners and force them to make a decision that feels so disempowering to them and so out of their bailiwick and control. Yes, I would absolutely commit to ending non-democratically elected bodies with that level of power. It's just immoral.
Good answer. No, I agree. I think that one of my biggest fears with this type of board, especially because it's connected to the military and this rhetoric around how we need to be part of the solution for our democracy more at large, that concerns me, because it feels like they could do anything they want, you know, speaking to a lot of the things that people have said up here already. So I think that continues to erode our trust in the public, that public representation that we have, whether it's the governor or the people that serve on MIDA or the other people that help support to create the board. It just creates a lot of questions. And honestly, when this first occurred, I was so, number one, there was so little time to consider the Box Elder data center situation right before the commissioners had to make a decision, that I think we all were taken aback at hearing about it, and then this was going to happen, right, kind of overnight. So I think that that also causes just huge distrust as far as us understanding this a transparent process. That this is the reason. I mean, who knows? Maybe, there's a slight chance that it could be something that's good. But because of all of this lack of trust, we're going to assume that's not great, right? And so I think that's a big challenge. It's hard to read through all the rhetoric around it to really understand what the details are. So I do appreciate that the Speaker of the House said that they would like studies done, and now the governor's made a statement. I think that has a lot to do with the political pushback and people really expressing themselves to make sure that people are held accountable for these types of actions.
I'm just gonna flat out say Stuart Adams hijacked MITA. I am familiar with MITA, and I'm familiar with military construction. It is very difficult for a base to get what they call military construction. So MITA was set up for Hill Air Force Base to be able to get employees moved out of World War II warehouses. That's where they're working into buildings. And what happened is, these buildings are on federal property, so no rules changed. So part of the requirements for MITA was it has to be involved in military property and military purpose. What's happening in Box Elder? It's not a military purpose. All they can point to is the military uses data centers, of course, military purpose. And then I tried to look for the military property. They have 1,200 acres out west of the desert, not connected, and that's the only reason that they can use the MITA authority. So I would definitely form MITA and get it back to its original purpose, which is to help the military installations themselves. This is a project, not MITA, but something similar is done in the base I was at Brian Patterson, in order to get military construction. It's very political, and what happens is the local construction companies are able to build facilities, and they are leased to the Air Force. They aren't owned by these companies, but at least long-term leases. And communities, local communities around the Air Force Base get revenue. I'm looking at Sunset, and they're talking about how they're using the MITA funds. That is completely different. When you get revenue off a building that's on a federal property, which you don't have control anyway, as opposed to what's happening. So before MITA, not doing this.
That's mine. Here. Will you pledge to refuse any campaign contributions from corporate PACs, fossil fuels, lobbyists, or real estate developer associations during your campaign? For those of you who are endorsed by us, you understand that if you do take that, we will be with those in our endorsement. Dakota. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Kim, just for will you pledge to refuse any campaign contributions from corporate PACs, fossil fuel lobbyists, or real estate developer associations during your campaign tenure? And if you are endorsed, you understand that you can take it to our endorsement will be with us.
Thank you for letting me know in advance. When you're a first-time candidate, you can fall into a lot of traps and step on a lot of eggshells without even realizing what you're getting into. So it's good to know in advance. Corporate PACs, I will not take corporate PAC money. Fossil fuel. I assume that means not only the companies, but also the unions that work with
Fossil fuel.
They don't want to endorse me because I care about the environment. So I guess that solves that problem. Real estate developers. I haven't bumped into any yet, so that probably won't be a problem either. Real estate development, though, seems like a big thing. I can imagine somebody who constructs a house is a real estate developer as well as some giant corporation. So I would want a little more clarity on that. But if it's a bad thing, then I would not want to be involved.
real estate, developer association.
Association. Okay. You can tell I don't know a lot about real estate. You can tell that I don't know a lot about real estate development association. So, yes, I would say I refute all of those things. Thank you for clarifying.
Of course.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, and I'm a newbie to this. I did not realize there are no limits
Yes.
in Utah for campaign contributions. Just blew my mind. For the legislature, not for the,
My answer is yes. I will not take money from people or organizations that conflict with my morals and my ethics, including the ones you mentioned, fossil fuel, lobbyists, the real estate development association was clarified, development versus real estate agents who sell houses, and probably could be very useful when you're dealing with housing affordability issues. Those are the folks I want to talk to as well, because they see a smattering of the population trying to get into houses and seeing how that works. And I think it'd be very useful. They want to throw some money my way. I'm not going to argue. I know I have received zero money from PACs.
This is just gonna be a quick yes or no. And I think unfortunately, Alvin, we're gonna have to, scoot by it. This is just a legislative question. I'm so sorry. Will you, so Bianca, will you commit to doing public funded elections so everyone has a chance to take an election?
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Yes.
I support that. We talked about this before. I'm almost going to be retired. You can't run. I'm working full time. But it's very difficult to run if you don't are independently wealthy or you're in retirement. And one of my friends observed that, gee, the people who are in the legislature now are all these, they're all.
They also take a lot of tax money. So, yeah, questions.
Yes. Are you willing to support public funding for
Public
elections so everyone?
Of course, there's some great examples.
Question here.
Yes.
At the same time, you're asking will they accept it, but are we also talking about excluding people from using their own funds and to make the playing field level?
With publicly funded elections, I think it is the assumption that you won't be using your own money because the state will be providing. If that's clarification.
Yeah, so in the UK, for example, is kind of what we were looking at when we were talking about this, that they have a certain amount of money they're allowed to spend and it's provided by the state and they cannot spend more than that. So it would be, a equal playing, there's a limit.
Thank you for the clarification.
The answer is yes, and there's some examples that we have in the US. New York is one of those where a candidate, after they get a number of small donations from their district, the state then matches with public funding. I know Seattle also has a similar type program. I think that could work here in Utah if we could pass it through the legislature. If we can all get elected with these good ideas on paper. I think that would be very helpful. I've seen it in other countries in Europe. They even close the window for campaigning, so you're not saturating the market and overwhelming people. It's like a month. I was in Germany a couple of years ago, and I barely noticed there was an election. I thought that was great. So we're overwhelming our population with not only requesting funds all the time, but also lambasting everybody every minute we can every year. So yes.
Yes, and I'll take it a step further. I'll push for open primaries, ranked choice voting, and the abolishment of the caucus convention system, because it is a broken system that continually delivers fringe candidates or opportunities for people to pack a delegate pool to elect their friends and family. Nobody should have to make huge sacrifices for public service. The pittance that we pay our public servants at the legislative level means that only independently wealthy people or retirees can typically serve. We need living wages for our legislature so that regular people can serve, because regular people can't take 45 days off in a row to serve in Salt Lake City, especially if they're from your rural Utah. And most people in the youngest state in the nation, the fastest growing one, don't have tens of thousands of their own dollars to give themselves so that they can run for office.
I guess Alvin, I'll ask, would you like publicly funded elections so you can benefit?
Yes.
Kim, you'll be the next one for this one. I have a couple of questions, and then we're going to go to audience, just so all of you are aware. In particular, you support K through 12 comprehensive sexual education, including but not limited to consent, clear, specific information, birth control, and abortion. You want to read this for me?
Do you support K through 12 comprehensive sexual education, including but not limited to consent information, clear specific information, birth control, and abortion? I forgot all of
Yeah.
Do I? Yes, yes, I do. I support age-appropriate sex education. Of course, you're not going to be teaching kindergartners the same things that you're teaching 12th graders. Of course not. But age-appropriate information is just part of living a human life. I think it's obvious and basic.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Sorry.
Absolutely. And I think you can start teaching many of these concepts in kindergarten, like consent. I mean, there's tag, there's chasing and kissing and all of this stuff that starts at a very young age because it's in our human nature, right? I fully support this at every level. And I think way back in the dinosaur age, when I went through this in 5th grade, we separated boys and girls. So it was always a mystery what happened on the other side, and what that has caused in our society is that you do not have the same support for women's health care, because I don't think men know what's going on, and they still don't in a lot of cases. So if you don't understand what goes on in a woman's body, it's easier to legislate what rights they do or don't have. So, and I would take that even further. You know, we have transgender folks, gender identity. We need to understand what that is. It's been in our population since the beginning of time. And it's time that we learn more about it instead of shunning and shaming. So that's it.
Yes. Public education purpose is to give students the tools to succeed in the real world when they conclude their education. Succeeding in the real world means that everybody leaves with the understanding of how we protect each other and how to operate in that environment. And it's just, I think it's integral to a healthy society for everybody to receive that level of education on sexual education and gender identity and other things. Because we have a shared experience that many kids don't have this support system at home to get that sort of education and figure it out as they go. And that puts their peers in danger in some cases, or puts them at a great disadvantage on a social level. So this helps level that playing field and ensures that our students are well-equipped adults.
Yes, I agree. Expanding healthcare, or sorry, sexual education at a much younger age. I think one of the things that's really sad about abstinence-based education is Utah. It's quite regularly one of the most top visitors of adult websites. And when you get your education from adult websites, you don't understand consent, you don't understand birth control. And it also is very damaging for long-term romantic partnerships if that's what you're looking for. So thank you.
Yes, I will just absolutely support that.
I'm gonna have to do another couple yes or no, so then we can get to people's other questions. So, Angela, I'm gonna have to ask you this. Have you ever used AI in your campaign?
If I did, it was unintentionally because I think Kennedy said it. So stop.
Absolutely.
No. Okay. I was gonna put it up. I took that picture. Not me, put it on. Ben,
Honestly, yes, I have. I've done it to help condense some of this crazy legislation that got passed first 45 days of the legislature to better understand, because it is so entangled and misnomered and nuanced that it's hard to get to the core of it. So using AI to summarize that helped me start researching more into the issues that I care about.
No, and in fact, with 3 people running for SB5, I'm the only candidate that has not used generative AI to produce content or improve my image or platform, and I'm the only candidate that has or has not taken money from AI tax up to a COVID pass.
I'm not even smart enough to know how to use AI. I don't know. I mean, I know there's the apps, but no, I have not used any AI.
For me, if no one knew this, I sometimes have issues with just focusing and collecting my thoughts. I won't go into it, but I have leveraged AI as appropriate as like an accessibility tool for me, because I had some issues with just what is going on in here. I need to understand how I can make an outline of what I want to say. What I present to my constituents and to my voters, that's authentic, but sometimes I need a help to get that first, step going. I really try to make sure though, not to use if my end product is AI and that's going to my voters or the public, I make sure to have a note at the bottom that says like, AI created or created with these solutions with AI, so it's clear.
So I have never subscribed to any sort of AI platform, but I don't even know how to talk about it. It's so foreign to me. But I know that every time I do a web search anymore, instead of just coming up with websites that I look at, it has an amalgamation that Google has already done stuff with. And you have to like click on things to try to figure out what the sources of their summary statements are. And I'm pretty sure that's real. And every time I do any Google search, that comes up. So yes,
For research purposes.
research. I haven't put anything on my website or anything. I don't know if some other agency or company might have used it, but I haven't.
I think this will be the last one. More yes or no, just so we can get to more questions for the people as possible. I know these are more nuanced questions, but apologies for the time frame. Do you support boycotts or divestments targeting Israel or any other genocidal state? I believe we are on the friend. I think so.
I don't oppose anybody with boycotts. I don't support what Israel is doing. Yes or no question?
Do you support boycotts and divestments?
I support them.
them.
Oh, absolutely. I love people support stuff.
Thank you.
I believe in free speech, and part of that free speech is putting your money where your morals are. I know that Utah has a law that punishes people and organizations that are boycotting Israel for their current military activities in the Middle East. I disagree with that law strongly. I think people should be able to use their voice with power of their dollars. I also am against anti-Semitism as well, but boycotting the government who is heinously bombing Gaza, I have friends who live there, it's very close to me, is absurd. And boycotting. We should be able to question what Israel's doing. We should be able to question what our own government does. This is part of being a democracy and free speech. So I support boycotts, divestments. If that's what you believe, you should be able to do that.
I'm unapologetically pro free speech and pro human rights. And as we watch atrocities occur overseas, I think that inherent right is accorded to everybody in this country through the Constitution of the United States. And that's a right I will defend vehemently in a way that many of our Republican counterparts will not. And it is uncomfortable to hear things that you don't agree with. It's also uncomfortable to see human rights abuses take place across the globe. So state nor federal government has any business imposing restrictions on what free speech is acceptable in everyday life.
Yes.
I think, quite frankly, this is the yes or no?
More of a yes or no, but.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I'm going to give a little context. Thank you. But I feel much like my colleagues here, that folks have an obligation to kind of follow what their ideology, their paradigms, whatever, is telling them that needs, that they need to do, or how they need to act, or how they need to move in this world. And I believe that that is a deeply personal choice. I also believe there's a distinction and there's a difference between anti-Semitism and being against the government. I think there's a difference there. So wanted to say thank you.
I am for free speech. I think we ought to be able to protest decisions of our government. We ought to be able to protest certainly decisions of other governments. We should have that right in democracy.
Okay, agreed with all of my colleagues. And I also just want to say that I'm a firm believer, and I've studied extensively Dr. King's Be Love and Beloved Community philosophy, which involves nonviolence. But also, in my mind, what really connects with this is that in the end, we all want to reconcile, right? So we don't ever want to, of course, extinguish any populations, number one. We also have to realize at the end, what we all would really benefit from is a community where everyone belongs.
I realize I have one question for both the SD5 candidates, so I'll hopefully be very quick. For both of you, since you are running in a primary, I want to ask for everyone here, why are you better against your Republican colleague?
Against each other.
Not against each other, I want to be a little bit nice, but against Jill Coker.
Right, so that's an easy target. Again, I'm CJ Hernandez running for Senate District 5. I think that our campaign can build a coalition to beat Jill Cofer. She has a very select sliver of the electorate that she talks to and works with, whereas both my colleague and I have a much broader approach to it. Personally, I span generations. I've raised children. I'm in the middle of life right now, and I've also taken care of my mother who recently passed away after hospice and assisted living. And I think I can speak to all of those issues. Jill cannot. Jill is very top level developer. It's very hard to find out how she pays taxes, what she pays for. She's registering vehicles in Montana to avoid taxes. I mean, there's a lot to uncover there. Whereas I'm here, I'm very open, I'm community first. I listen to what voters have to say. Jill does not. She voted against unions. She has voted against higher education issues. Almost everything that we've protested in the last year, she has voted against that. Even when people have called, including me and my colleagues and my friends, there is no listening. It's what I know and towing the party line. She may say that she listens. That was her campaign last year. I have not gotten one response that wasn't a formulated email from her. So enough about her, more about us. We're here to listen. We're here to take a seat at the table to represent our community and to move forward the issues we talked about today, which is affordability, public education, saving the Great Salt Lake, and also listening to voters. Thank you.
So I'll harken back to my introduction. There's one candidate who can draw a really strong contrast with Jill. One candidate who has actually already built a coalition that looks like to defeat a Republican who's already in the legislature. I've got Republican elected officials in my camp because they understand that I do the work and I've done critical work locally and on the top issues facing our state, and that's housing. I'm also the only candidate that holds elected office and has won an election and then does the work that it takes to sustain that coalition and build that base. It really boils down to representation. I talked about how this is the youngest district in the state of Utah, and the average voting age is 50. But I want to warn everybody that if we're going to bank on just a wave here, we're going to lose this election by 10 points. We need a candidate who can energize the voters, people who sit out of the state Senate race, because for the last 30 years, they've looked at their representatives and said, that's someone who's out of touch, that doesn't look like me and doesn't care about the issues that face me and my family. Well, I'm a working class person. I work full time. And I know what it's like to buy a home in this environment. I know what it's like to rent. I know what it's like to deal with the inability to start a family because costs are too high. This is something that Jill does not have in her toolkit. And it is something that makes me uniquely capable of speaking to voters that we can activate and reach. And also evidencing that I can reach across the aisle because I have through my endorsements and through my work. We have the coalition in place. We're growing it. Jill is not prepared for that dynamic.
Excellent. And we are now going into audience questions. If any of you have any questions for these candidates, be specific if you live in their district or if you would like to ask one of the broad questions. Do you have any questions for them?
Can you just find out who's living with this?
Is anybody living in Bianca's district? House District 7. Anybody in Kim's district? Any in Angela's? Any in Dave's? Oh, hold on, sorry, I have to raise my hand. That should be all of us, most of us anyway. And of course, all of us will be represented by Alvin. And then anybody from HD10 or HD12 here. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Alvin, will you commit to capping the amount of money that the Weber Commission is granted to each candidate, each sitting member?
You mean like as far as their paid salaries go?
Yes.
I have no idea how I would control that, but I do know that they pay themselves a lot of money, and I would like to have a reflection on the work provided, paid based on what you pay. And I don't think that $200,000 is near fair, because the funding, what was it, $100 million is what their budget, annual budget is. 55% of that alone is just for the sheriff department. And then whatever amount they pay, I don't know what the exact percentage is. It is ridiculous. So yeah, I do agree with you. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? I can ask one. Okay.
Totally a question.
Hi, my name is Katie. I know a number of you. There's not a single person on this stage who cannot win without a healthy amount of Republican votes and or swing. There's not a single safe Democratic seat. We can get into gerrymandering, which you will mention at some point later. How are you talking to Republicans at the doors? What is your persuasion message? Because each and every one of you needs one. I imagine that's the core of it. We're all progressives here, Democrats, and so this is a safe room. But how are you approaching non-safe rooms if you are at all?
You're in 11, right? So let's have Dave answer first.
There's a lot of commonality between what progressives want and what Republicans want. I think a lot of Republicans reflexively pull the lever for Republicans. So my strategy is actually to meet people. And, I have done, right now, I put hangers on 3,000 doors. And we've got folks helping me do that. That's the first level of approaching people, just to go out. And when I do that, there are invariably people who are outside that costume. But I do know that when I talk to people, I had someone tell me, well, you seem normal. Well, yeah, we are normal. And so, that's the retail politics. There are, I'm an Air Force vet, and people, conservative, they like it. And then I tell them, well, I have single-payer health care. Talking to Brett, he's retired Army, and we talked about that. We have single-payer health care. And when I mentioned that to people, well, what are you talking about? I don't get health care from my employer. None of it, if we didn't have that. But my employer was in the military. They still called it health care. I wasn't more. I never had to worry about it. So I pointed out those things. I pointed out the fact that I had a VA loan. Government didn't buy my house for me. What I did is it backed up my loan, and we have those kind of programs. So those are the things I would point out to. And there are a lot of folks that understand it. And one other thing they understand, I have Republicans who understand when I say things like, how many people have kids, adults shorter with a full-time job, living with these in homes? That's a top issue. One other is there are a number of things that the legislature votes for that people don't like. People want mail-in ballots. I lead with that. You want to still be able to do mail-in ballots? Well, your Republican, your legislature is. So those are some of the things I thought.
So let's keep it up.
Yeah. I just want to point out that I worked for 5 different presidential administrations in my time as a public servant, and I've had to speak all the languages. Had to work with all the policy, all the congressional delegations of any stripe and color. This is kind of my area, is to be able to talk topics where we have common ground. Dave's mentioned quite a few of them that I would focus on as well. I think the big one that everyone seems to agree on as well is the clean air and saving the Great Salt Lake. No matter what color you vote, everyone's very concerned about that. And you see more pushback from all sides on that issue. And I think that is going to be top of mind when we come to election time in November. The other thing has to deal with housing ownership. Is very big, not only with Republicans, but with LDS communities as well. It's very much about owning that piece of land, and it's what they're taught to do, raise and protect their families, and I totally respect that. How we can make that more possible, I think, is an opening as well. You'll always hear the refrain about taxes, and I think what is missing there is what do their taxes go toward, and how much control do they have over it? For instance, public education. If you treat it like an investment versus, oh, well, they should just figure it out on their own, that speaks to Republican voters. We are investing in the child that lives next door because they may be your gynecologist in the future, or your heart doctor, or driving the bus that hopefully we get more of in the future. If you can put it in those terms where they see it, the result of it, and not just money going out, I think that's been the response that I've gotten. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of common ground to be found.
So I've won an election in a historically red city, and it's not really rocket science. So when we were getting signatures to get on the ballot, we collected over 3,000 raw signatures. I think about 55% of those are registered Republicans. It's talking to them like people. It's those unifying issues that bring us all together. The kitchen table issues. A lot of Republicans, especially some Republicans, are conservationists. They really care about the environment, outdoor recreation, their ability to live here. The inversion scares them. Home ownership. And also having someone, show up their door who understands innately the complexities of property tax, because a lot of people are feeling that upward pressure on cost of living because of the decisions being made by whichever taxing district in response to the state legislature. And those people don't care about really a lot of the social stuff that our legislature is fixating itself on the past few years. And I'm not running on social issues. It's material conditions, it's opportunity, it's ensuring that the American dream is achievable for future Utahns in ways that slip past us. And a lot of those Republicans are willing to vote for a Democrat this go around, in part because, yeah, it's someone who's going to work for them and represent them well and isn't 60 and out of touch. And that's the key there. It's just representation and being willing to talk to people. So.
Was I supposed to say? Oh, I don't have one. Oh, I forgot. What, remind me the question again?
Have you talked to Republican voters?
I am still trying to get like a actual campaign team together, so I haven't even really been able to have that experience. But I tried to kind of like what Dakota was saying, focus on, you know, the issues that directly would impact us as a working class and what we can do to help alleviate some of the pressures we're feeling, especially when it comes to like cost of housing and ICE, things of that are some of the biggest concerns that I personally see and hear talked about around town.
So, to me, one thing that comes to mind, I have an opportunity to support and work out of the Ogden Education Association office, handing out packets during the HB 267 referendum, excuse me. And one thing I noticed is as I was, talking to the multitude of people, it granted everybody was coming through, right? Not just Democrats, not just left-leaning. We had conservative folks. We had everybody in there. The one thing that was unifying was this sense of getting tired and beyond tired of government overreach. That was a huge misstep. And so what I'm finding is our Republican neighbors are beyond tired of the overreach that maybe they've seen, but now they are experiencing. And so I think being able to have conversations with them where there's discussions of, okay, well, let's do something different, so that they're aware that that's an option, that they don't have to be married to the yard, that there's something else that they can consider, I think is the first step.
My campaign color is purple for a reason. I recognize immediately exactly what you are pointing out. There's no way a Democrat can win House District 8 without getting quite a large number of registered Republicans to vote for me. So purple is my signal to the people. I have to be able to work with all of you, and it's a reminder to myself that I need to be able to work with lots of different. I am a person who has practiced Christian faith all my life, and so I think that gives me an ability to understand the dominant faith, even though it's different from mine. I understand people who want to be faithful, and I have put at the top of my website, faithful leadership, Wurth and James for faithful leadership. I think that the majority of people in our state, probably in our whole country, don't like the extremes. And so one way to talk to Republicans is to help them understand that right now, with a super majority that has enough votes that they can implement a new law within immediate time. They don't have to wait for the governor's signature after the legislative session. They can enact new legislation immediately because they have so many votes. I think we need to slow things down, help people have time to catch up and realize what's going on. And if we avoid that extreme supermajority in our legislature, then we would be able to have more rational discussions and more input from the people. And I think I think most Republicans in our state comprehend that importance.
So those are all really great answers. I would say that the first thing I've done is just shown up. So last 2 years ago, my campaign team and I, we showed up at the doors. We were making phone calls, we were texting, et cetera, doing all the things you need to do. And honestly, a lot of people were surprised when I was at the door, no matter which community it was in, really, because they're just not used to anyone actually doing that. So first of all, you just show up, and then also I just try to listen more than I talk in general. Sometimes people are reluctant, especially if they know you're a Democrat and they're just realizing that you're a real person. But yeah, to start talking about issues. But I think, especially from my experience, one, actually in several different roles, but especially the city council too, the issues or the values that you have with certain people, you can't discount that you won't find something in common with them just because of their partisanship or where they grew up. Probably the most conservative person on the city council, there's several values areas where we were able to align, and so trying to focus on those things versus the partisanship. I think it is really challenging because, number one, because my opponent probably won't show up at the doors in the same way. They kind of know that I'm the underdog, but sometimes that's beneficial.
Who has questions? I want to make sure you had a hand up first, right?
Oh yeah, so Leah has a question, but because of her amazingly beautiful French accent, she would like me to ask it for her. So Governor Cox started Operation Gigawatt in 2024, the nuclear plant in Brigham City, and it was talked about early in 2025 with Utah GOP leadership. If you were in the legislature and you were to find out about something like this that's secret but a huge deal, would you be the type of elected officials to confront them about it, even though they don't want you involved in the conversation?
Oh. It always takes a minute for it to come on. So the question is not about nuclear power, it's about would I stand up to,
if you find something out within like Operation Gigawatt, which started in 2024. That's when they started talking about it. But they don't want the Democrat involved. But you're an elected official and you figure that out. And they are talking AI data center, they're talking nuclear plants. Would you go to them and say, please, can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, I am not a bashful person. I grew up as the middle child between two brothers, and somehow that made me strong. I have the ability to talk to people about things that other people are shy to talk about.
Would you let us know as your constituents?
Of course.
Or would you follow what the Utah Democratic leadership is saying?
Well,
because we don't hear from the people.
I don't really know what the Utah Democratic leadership would be wanting. I know that there's times when, for strategic purposes in the legislature, the Democrats kind of get quiet so that the Republicans will pass good ideas without feeling like the Democrats are. Republicans don't want the Democrats to get any credit for anything. So if the Democrats want to get legislation passed, sometimes they have to pretend they didn't have anything to do with it. That's what we've been told. So, know what all the situations would be in the future. And so I can't make a blanket statement about everything. But if there's an issue that I feel very strongly about that is not going in the right direction, you better believe I'll be speaking up about it.
I can vouch for her on that too. Well, I think you did a great job because I think you do have to be diplomatic sometimes, and I'm sure everybody knows that sometimes in politics you have to be diplomatic. I think that what I've seen with the Democratic leadership just from the outside anyway, is that it seems like it's much more likely in the Democratic side that there'd be a variety of voices. Sometimes there's one or two people that don't feel the same way and votes, etc. Whereas on the other side, because of the supermajority, it is very difficult for any of those people to pull away. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. Like, you know, these folks are running is to break that supermajority, because then we would have a lot more power in those spaces. But I think that from what I've witnessed with most of our Democratic colleagues in the legislature, they've done a good job of navigating those spaces. Because in the end, honestly, even as a city council member, I want the good thing to happen for the community. I don't need to have credit, and I don't need to be part of the conversation as long as the positive thing is happening. But if it's negative, I'm also going to look that way too, and definitely stand up for people and do trans.
Yes, I would speak up. I'm certainly outspoken, and if you go to my Facebook page, and some of you follow me.
All right.
I was active before, and so I do try to tone it down a little bit, but it's going to be hard for somebody to go to my Blue Sky or my Facebook account and know where I stand on things. Yeah, I would not have a problem. Legislators are not, we're beholden to the people who voted the same. We're not our bosses on the governor or
We don't hear from you.
students.
As the police.
Well, one of
The
the,
Democrat don't come here.
you know, I'm going to pass this on, but I will say, one of the doors I stopped at, a couple came out and talked to me and said, well, why should I vote for you? I said, well, I'm here. Because yeah, that's right. I've never seen my ad. So that's an important thing to get out and do that. And one of the things I tend to do is to meet with community leaders and to have regular constituent meetings. Utah is great. The library system is great for consent rooms. Great. I don't know if people do this. As long as it's public.
I'll sit in the couple, yeah.
I'm running on the Democratic ticket because it's the party that aligns with my values. We don't have a lot of parties to choose from in this country or in this state that have a real shot at taking a position. So we'll start there. I'm running to represent people, not institutions. I'm running to represent people, not the party. I'm running to represent people over special interests, and I will always run to represent people. I'm not here to climb the political ladder. This is my first time running. I've had a career in public service. I know what it takes. I know what policies do. I've answered a gazillion FOIA requests over the years on everything from our foreign policy to what we spent on that $500 hammer. You all know what I'm talking about. And with gusto, I do that because what funds my salary, what funds our government is your dollars. And I've been accountable for every penny I have spent as a contracting officer as well. So let me be clear, if it's facing re-election uncertainty, that doesn't scare me at all. When we get in, we have 4 years in this seat to make a huge difference, and we better be pushing at everything we can, or else what is it for?
So transparency and integrity matters. I think that the crux of your question is if a public policy decision was made in a non-public meeting, that is a huge issue. I'm not concerned at all about the optics of making people aware of that. Trust is the foundation of our form of government. And as Angela said a few questions back, like, there's a huge absence of trust in our representation right now. And ensuring that that is maintained and it is verifiable, then we need to make our constituents known. We cannot be afraid of backlash from inter-party nonsense or from the supermajority. Integrity matters from every single one of our elected officials. As a city council member, I can't make a policy decision. I can't even have a conversation with 2 of my colleagues in the same room without public noticing that as a meeting. That is a good thing. There are barriers around a lot of these legislative bodies to help ensure that trust and enshrine it in the political process, and especially for things that are deeply, deeply transformational as far as if they come to fruition, those things need to be made where public, and you need to have representation who's afraid to stand up and vocalize that, but also is willing to adhere to those guardrails that are in place, because no action in our government in this legislative process should be made without a vote.
I'm not entirely sure how that question would relate to being a Weber County Commissioner, but if I were in a similar situation where a county commissioner was going behind the constituents' back to make a decision, where the Fox Elder data center is a great example of that, I would definitely put pressure on them to get more information out of them and challenge them on why they think that they can make a decision without public input. I hope that answers your question, Nikki.
I think, transparency, accountability, and integrity are definite cornerstones of any, political career, or political figure. But unfortunately, that's been missing, and we've all felt that, and we're all aware of that. What I can say is who I am as a person, and part of my personal ethos is to just really lead with a lot of honesty, transparency. And so I feel that I am in this role to represent the people. And if the people I represent haven't had an opportunity to weigh in or have to say or anything like that, or on any decision that may be happening up on the Hill, that's a problem. And it needs to be flagged, and it needs to be, it's a problem. So thank you.
Just a quick, easy question for the caucus, actually. I'm glad that Alvin was able to join us, but I'm now under the impression that there may be candidates who would be considered members of this caucus who were not able to make it. Is there anything the caucus would like to be aware of?
So for HD 10, Rosemary is currently, from what I remember, out of the state currently, and Anna Graff, although on the meeting, is incredibly sick. So unfortunately, those two are critical. So that's for your.
Why not have us all here?
Yep. Any other questions? No? All right.